With the release of Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater being a couple weeks ago, veterans of the series and newcomers alike get to experience one of the best stories in gaming with a new coat of paint and modern gameplay. On September 5th, the official Metal Gear account made a post stating that Delta Snake Eater has sold over 1 million copies globally in its first week. While the reception of Delta Snake Eater has been mixed due to performance issues, the new modern gameplay mode making the game feel too easy at times, and people feeling Konami played it too safe with this remake, the overall consensus on the game is positive. With the success Metal Gear Solid Delta is seeing, there is no question in my mind that Konami is looking to the future of the Metal Gear series. While Delta Snake Eater is the first remake we received from the Metal Gear series, this isn't Konami's first remake in recent years. Last year, in 2024, Konami released a remake from Silent Hill 2, which was met with similarly positive consensus from the gamers around the world. And earlier this year, back in June, Konami announced that Bloober Team has started development on a remake for the original Silent Hill. This announcement of another Silent Hill remake tells me that Konami is pleased with the success they're finding and want to continue down the path of remaking their older games. Before getting into which game in the Metal Gear series should be remade next, I think another question needs to be answered first. When Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater was announced back in May of 2023, the question became, why start with the third game? There can be multiple logical answers to this question. The first reason could be because Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is typically people's favorite Metal Gear Solid game. Fans of the original Metal Gear Solid 3 praise the story, characters, and bosses that the game presents. Because Metal Gear Solid 3 is considered the fan favorite, but Konami remaking it probably felt like the safest bet in finding success. The idea of remaking the fan favorite game can also be applied to answer the question of why Konami remade Silent Hill 2 first as well. The second reason as to why Konami decided to remake Metal Gear Solid 3 first is because this is the first game in the series chronologically. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater acts as the origin story for the character of Big Boss, showing us how he came to obtain the name, introducing us to his mentor, and giving more backstory and proper introductions to characters that are prominent in the rest of the Metal Gear series. There are two paths Konami can go when choosing the next remake: choosing another fan favorite, or continuing the story of Big Boss. If Konami decided to go the fan favorite route, then Metal Gear Solid from 1998 would be the next choice. If Konami wanted to continue on the path of telling the story of Big Boss, then I think Metal Gear from 1987 would be the best choice. This feels like the most obvious choice for the next remake in the series. While Snake Eater is typically considered the fan favorite of the entire series, the original Metal Gear Solid possesses the most nostalgia for many players. Metal Gear Solid was revolutionary for the time, with the entry being the first in the series to feature voice acting and cinematic cutscenes. The introduction of these elements allowed the story and characters to make the game as great as it was. The most recent re-release of Metal Gear Solid was seen in 2023 with the release of the Master Collection Volume 1. While this version of the game allowed for players to play the game on modern consoles, the re-release showed how much the game would benefit from having a remake. Metal Gear Solid was already remade back in 2004 with the release of Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes on the GameCube that made the game feel more like how Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty felt on the PlayStation 2. However, the gameplay in Metal Gear Solid is still very outdated and would most likely be unappealing to newcomers of the series. A remake of Metal Gear Solid could also make unforgettable moments in the game more cinematic and modern. Fixed camera angles, stiff controls, and a limited enemy AI don't hold up to modern games. Some boss fights feel extremely outdated, even though they were inspiring ideas back in the day. The boss fight with Psycho Mantis on modern consoles doesn't have the same novelty as it did on the PlayStation 1, where you needed to plug your controller into the Player 2 slot in order to actually fight him. On modern consoles, the physical switching of controller ports is replaced with a toggle setting in the pause menu. The boss fight with Sniper Wolf is more of an annoyance than anything else when compared to modern gunplay. A remake of Metal Gear Solid would not only allow Konami to make the game look prettier and elevate the environment of Shadow Moses, but also be able to bring modern gameplay to a game that, at times, gets held back by its age. As I said earlier in the video, one of the critiques of Delta Snake Eater is that it is too safe of a remake. Delta Snake Eater is almost a one-for-one remake of the original Metal Gear Solid 3, where Konami didn't take any liberties with the narrative or gameplay. This leads me to believe that Konami would do the same with a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid. A remake of Metal Gear Solid could also divide the fan base between veterans of the series and newcomers who have joined the series with Delta Snake Eater. While the outdated visuals and gameplay of Metal Gear Solid can be seen as a deterrent for newcomers, veterans of the series consider this to be the charm of the original game, where a remake could diminish that. The other choice for the next remake in the Metal Gear series is the original Metal Gear released in 1987 on the MSX2 and later ported to the NES. This game saw the introduction of Solid Snake and his relationship with Big Boss, Outer Heaven, and the seeds that would become one of the most complex storylines in gaming. While this was the first game in the Metal Gear series, most players have probably never played or even heard of this game. The original Metal Gear was revolutionary for being one of the first stealth games. However, because of the hardware limitations, the stealth gameplay was boiled down to the guards having stiff patterns and limited perception. And if you were seen by an enemy, you could just move to the next screen, which made the alert go away, making the stealth gameplay feel optional for most of the game. The original Metal Gear would greatly benefit from a remake to modernize the gameplay and advance the stealth gameplay to modern standards, which would make moving around Outer Heaven feel more engaging. In the original game, the narrative is very bare bones. Story beats are given by hostages you rescue throughout the game and codec calls, and none of it feels impactful. The big twist of the game feels almost like a throwaway storyline. Remaking Metal Gear would allow Konami to flesh out the betrayal of Big Boss, allow Outer Heaven to feel more grandiose, and show Solid Snake become the legend we know he is. Given the context of all the other games in the Metal Gear series, could make the story of the original Metal Gear feel more interconnected and seamless as we transition from playing as Big Boss to Solid Snake. The original Metal Gear would gain the most out of a remake in the gameplay department. Better stealth and making the boss fights feel more engaging are two main improvements that can be made with a remake. However, the issue I see with remaking the original Metal Gear is the lack of narrative that is present. In a remake, I would want to see more of Big Boss training Solid Snake, be able to see Solid Snake grapple with the fact that his mentor has defected, and give more background and character to the bosses present in the game. The reason this can be seen as an issue is because Hideo Kojima, the mind behind the Metal Gear series, wouldn't be the one to expand the narrative. Delta Snake Eater already saw backlash and skepticism from veterans of the Metal Gear series, even though it was essentially a one-for-one remake. I don't see the fan base being open to new narrative beats that didn't come from Kojima kindly. However, a remake of Metal Gear that contains new story moments could be a way for Konami to show if they are able to continue the series with Kojima behind the script. Weighing both options, here's where I land. A remake of Metal Gear would be fascinating, but it would require massive reinvention, new content, and it would inevitably spark backlash because Kojima wasn't involved. This would make it a very risky move for Konami. On the other hand, Metal Gear Solid is the fan favorite among the two options. The narrative and characters in the game are so iconic, and its gameplay is begging to be modernized. A remake of Metal Gear Solid would, without doubt, be a huge success for Konami. So my answer is clear. Metal Gear Solid should be the next game in the Metal Gear series to get the remake treatment. Remaking the original Metal Gear would be too risky a move, especially in a time where Konami needs to prove that they can handle this series with the care it deserves. But what do you think? Do you agree that Metal Gear Solid should be the next remake in the series? Do you think Konami should take the risk and remake the original Metal Gear? Or do you think Konami should just leave the Metal Gear series alone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Goodbye.